My childhood in the group, for the most part, was a really good one. We had about 300 acres in Arkansas, a private community with several ponds and streams. We had lots of recreational activities, including volleyball, basketball.
By anyone's standards, Benjamin Risha had everything any child could want growing up. He grew up in the Tony Alamo Ministries compound in Dyer, Arkansas. As the adopted son of the self-proclaimed world prophet and his wife, Susan, he was treated almost like royalty.
Life was really good until I began seeing more and more physical abuse of my friends by Tony Alamo, where they would beat us for simple things like holding hands with a girl, or if we were caught kissing a girl, one of my friends received more than 100 swats with the board while he was spread out in the air.
Born in 1934, Tony Alamo was living in California when he claimed to work in the music industry before receiving a direct message from God to begin his ministry.
When I got saved and I met Sue, it was so exciting. And then when we got married, I says, God has got to love me more than anybody in the world.
The street preacher from L.A. started his church in 1969, relocating 2 hours northwest of Little Rock to Dyer in 1975. He expanded his anti-Catholic apocalyptic ministry into a multi-million-dollar network of businesses and property, manufacturing elaborately decorated jackets for celebrities. Risha's first doubts came at a young age after Susan died.
There is room at the cross for you.
Tony Alamo and Susan also said that she would raise from the dead in 3 days. We prayed over her body, and on the third day when she didn't rise up, in my heart, I knew Tony was a false prophet.
His hundreds of followers were taught to rely on Alamo to save their soul, but they ended up relying on him as their sole source of survival.
He required us to more or less worship him and not really God. It was his version of the Bible. It was his version of morality that was enforced, not higher power that enlightened people.
Constantly being told as you're growing up that every little thing you do, you're going to burn in hell.
Ron Decker's parents were about 18 years old when they joined the ministry. He was born into it.
There was good memories, but there was bad memories too.
After disagreeing with how Alamo led the ministry, he ran away in his early 20s and within weeks got a job with the sheriff's office in Northwest Arkansas.
Leaving there, it's you get out into a completely different environment and you have to learn how the world works.
Risha began researching and found out his birth parents, who he was told had died, were alive. At 17, he ran away with Alamo's followers chasing him through an airport trying to stop him.
As I began to learn about the lies that I had been forced to believe for my entire life about my mother, my father, religion, the nature of the world, I became angry. And it wasn't just from that. It was also from the abuse. So I had an anger issue that I had to also deal with while I was trying to assimilate into high school and into college.
Years after his wife's death, Tony Alamo began taking child brides as young as 8 years old. And in 2009, he was sentenced to 175 years in prison for transporting young girls across state lines for sex.
God commanded young women to get married, and when they start their periods, they are women according to God's word. They should be able to be married at 13, 14, 15 years old. And in some cases, if they menstruated already, 12 years old. The government does condone child sex, but they don't condone them to get married to somebody old enough to be able to support them.
They started with really good intentions, to bring salvation to the world, to help those that needed help. But then on the flip side of that, there was an equally dark side. And the ideology that Tony Alamo spewed was abusive. It was a lie, and it was a perversion from any form of Christianity that's out there.
Tony Alamo's compound in Dyer was sold decades ago, and now some people live in the homes that were on the property. But Tony Alamo's home still sits on top of this hill vacant.
You realize that it is not about an organization that says that they're the only ones, everybody else is going to burn in hell if they're not in that organization. Like, it's not about religion, it's about God.
Decker has been in law enforcement ever since, now a SWAT, K-9 deputy, and Purple Heart recipient. He's remarried with 6 kids.
We were constantly told that if you left, you would amount to nothing. You would burn in hell, you'd amount to nothing, you would do nothing. So I think that's a lot of my drive to try to prove that, like, nope, I'm going to do something with my life.
Alamo died in a North Carolina prison hospital in May 2017. He was 82 years old.
When he died, there was a relief there.
It was emotional, and I'm not going to say emotional in a bad way.
And the walls came tumbling down.
Risha now lives in Seattle, sharing his story as often as he can.
Reclaiming what was done to me empowers me and empowers other people who have suffered to say, you will not keep me cornered. I will live on.
While Alamo is gone and most of his former members are no longer affiliated, there are still followers.
They still talk about him as if he was the one prophet that was supposed to be, and it's not, obviously, because he's dead.
If people are out there looking for any kind of enlightenment or community, that they are susceptible to groups like this.
Risha and Decker hope their story serves as a warning about cults while showing people they can move on from the past without letting something or someone define them.
I didn't dwell on the past, and unless somebody brings it up, I don't think about how the past affected my life. I just look to the future and try to make it better.
And the walls came tumbling